shall come. Darkness seek to reach all the corners of the earth.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to a brand new episode of RoundUp. Unfortunately, as you can see, Ghani's not with us here today, but not to worry as he'll be back next week, inshallah. But without further ado, let's see what we have coming up in today's episode.
Coming up, we have a special report on the university protests against the war on Gaza. Then we head to Canada to learn about the French language. And finally, we take a trip to see the stunning architecture of Spain.
Wow, that looks like such an interesting lineup. But before we get into that, let's head over to Urshman to get the top stories this week. Assalamu alaikum Urshman, what do you have for us today?
Wa alaikum assalam Nasir Bhai. UN agencies and Gazans in Rafah are bracing for a ground assault after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the attack will happen with or without a deal. Israel and Hamas are negotiating a possible ceasefire agreement and exchange of hostages. But Netanyahu said on Tuesday that will not stop an attack on Rafah. Aid agencies warned that any attack could have devastating consequences. The World Health Organization said that while food access is better throughout Gaza, the risk of famine still exists. Many people lack the money to pay for food. 7 months into the war on Gaza, over 35,000 people have been killed and 2 million displaced from northern Gaza into the south, including Rafah. The Conservative Party in the UK faced heavy losses across the country this week as 2,600 council elections were held. Election results were coming in through the weekend, but Conservatives have already lost more than 440 seats nationwide. However, not everyone switched to Labour. Instead, the Liberal Democrats, Independents and Green Party made large gains across the country. Several cities also voted in mayoral elections, with London's Sadiq Khan up for re-election. The council elections are seen as a preview of a national election expected to be held later in the year. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservatives are trailing Labour badly in option polls as they face scandal and economic mismanagement in recent years. Tourists trying to get a good view of Mount Fuji are causing problems for a Japanese town. So now local officials are putting up a barrier to block the view to stop tourists from overcrowding the spot across a convenience store. Visitors flock to the town located about 50 kilometers southwest of Tokyo to take photos of the store and the Mount Fuji. The crowds have led to complaints of littering and illegal parking. So now officials have started work on a 2.5 meter high and 20 meter wide black barrier to stop the crowds. It's the latest sign of Japan's struggle to deal with the surge in the visitors as the country's currency slumps to a 34-year low. Jazakallah Nasir Bhai, that's all from me this week.
Jazakallah Urshman for bringing us the news this week. Now let's head over to Rahel to get the Friday sermon summary from this week.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome to this week's Friday sermon discussion. Today, we're continuing to dive into a captivating historical event from the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, known as the expedition of Hamra al-Asad, as mentioned by our beloved Huzoor, Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Aziz, in his recent sermon. During the sermon, Huzoor mentioned that the city of Medina was suddenly threatened by the Meccans' plan to attack. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, immediately announced that the Muslims should prepare, but he also instructed that except for those people who had participated at Uhud, no one else should set out with them. Now imagine being battered and bruised from the arduous battle of Uhud, and then again having to ready for battle. Yet, look at the example of the companions. It's written that they set out with such joy and zeal as if they were a triumphant army in pursuit of the enemy. When the Quraysh were informed of the state of the companions, their passion and their readiness to battle once again, they were struck with fear. They decided then to abandon their plans of attacking Medina and retreated back to Mecca. When the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, heard of this retreat, he thanked Allah the Almighty and said, "This is the awe of God, which He has struck into the hearts of the disbelievers." Now, let's move on to a very important lesson. A famous poet named Abu Uzza was captured by the Muslims in battle. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, let him go without asking for anything in return, after he promised not to fight against the Muslims anymore. But later, Abu Uzza broke his promise and joined the fight against the Muslims again, even encouraging others to join him with his poems when he was captured a second time. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, decided he was too dangerous to be set free. Despite Abu Uzza's apologies, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "A believer is not stung by the same hold twice." Huzoor then spoke about the outcome of the Battle of Uhud. He explained that historians have different views about the Battle of Uhud. Some think it was a defeat for Muslims, while others say it started a defeat but turned into victory. However, considering the way wars were fought back then, it's not fair to say Muslims lost. After the battle, Abu Sufyan and his army left, without doing what victorious armies usually do, like taking prisoners or staying at the battleground. So it doesn't make sense to call it revenge for Badr. Although Muslims lost some lives, they never left the battlefield, and God prevented the disbelievers from winning. The Battle of Uhud, along with events after it, actually showed how it was a big win for Muslims. So what can we take away from the expedition of Hamra al-Asad? Unity, courage, sacrifice, and strategic thinking. These are the values that define Prophet Muhammad's, peace be upon his, leadership and continue to inspire us today. Towards the end of his sermon, Huzoor Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasir al-Aziz requested prayers for the world, especially for Muslims and Palestine. Even if there's a ceasefire, injustices against Palestinians won't stop. He mentioned that the arrogance of some powerful nations seems to be breaking, and prayed for them to act justly to avoid further problems. Huzoor Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasir al-Aziz also asked for prayers for himself, as he recently had heart valve surgery. The procedure went well, but he needed time to recover. Now, with Allah's grace, he's doing better, but still requests prayers for his good health. And that's a wrap for today's discussion. That's all for today. Remember, brothers and sisters, we shouldn't forget to try and listen to all of Beloved Huzoor's sermons, as it's filled with blessings and so much more interesting things for us to learn. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah Rohail for bringing us this week's Friday Sermon Summary. If you didn't catch the live broadcast, be sure to watch it on any of MTA's various platforms. Now, as you may have heard, Huzoor Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasir al-Aziz has mentioned the ongoing protests in the US. Let's go to Arshman to get a deeper look at the universities that are holding these protests and what they've been doing throughout this month.
That's right, we're seeing a movement of university protests and encampments that started in the United States, but is now popping up in many other places as well. Pro-Palestinian protests have appeared at least several universities across Australia, the UK and Canada. More than 2,000 people have been arrested at US campuses since 18th April, as some universities respond heavily-handedly with police enforcement. Clashes and standoffs with police at New York's Columbia University and University of California, Los Angeles have captured global attention. But what is the purpose of these protests and encampments? Well, students are mostly calling for the universities to divest from companies that support Israel and the war in Gaza. Universities use investment funding to run their services. Many have invested in companies that provide military equipment, surveillances, technology or other industries necessary in the Israel-continued occupation and war on Gaza. Some universities in the US have reached agreements with their students to look into divestment and other pro-Palestinian action, but others like Columbia University refused to cave into demand, calling in police instead. In light of the protests, it's important to remember the guidance of Beloved Huzoor, who recently touched on the topic.
तलबा फ़लस्तीनियों के लिए दुआओं और सरकारी अहलकारों को खतूत लिखने के अलावा और क्या कर सकते हैं और क्या हमें एहतजाजों में शामिल होने की इजाज़त है?
अगर तो पुरअमन एहतजाज है, तोड़ फोड़ नहीं करनी और जो नेशनल प्रॉपर्टी है या हुकूमत के प्रॉपर्टीज़ है, इंस्टॉलेशंस हैं, उनको नुकसान नहीं पहुंचाना और टायर शायर जला के तो हुआ नहीं करनी है, पुलिस पे पथराव नहीं करना है, पेट्रोल बम नहीं फेंकने, पेट्रोल बोतल नहीं फेंकनी, तो फिर तो ठीक है, कर सकते हैं एहतजाज इस हद तक, ताकि पता लगे कि स्ट्रेंथ कितनी है। यहाँ यूके में एहतजाज होते हैं, पुरअमन एहतजाज फ़लस्तीनियों के हक़ में होते रहे हैं, तो अहमदी उसमें शामिल होते रहे, कोई हर्ज नहीं था उसमें, ठीक है, लेकिन तोड़ फोड़ नहीं करनी चाहिए, ठीक है, वो गलत चीज़ है।
Beloved Huzoor also mentioned in the protest in the week's Friday sermon.
ये बहुत दुआओं की ज़रूरत है, अल्लाह ताला फ़लस्तीनियों को भी तौफ़ीक दे और वो भी अल्लाह ताला की तरफ झुकें। बहरहाल इन हालात ने वो तकब्बरों के गरूर तोड़ने के भी सामान पैदा कर दिए हैं और अब लग रहा है कि इनके भी गरूर तोड़ने के सामान अल्लाह ताला ने कार्रवाई शुरू कर दी है। कब मुकम्मल होता है ये काम ये अल्लाह बेहतर जानता है, लेकिन बहरहाल ये तकब्बुर जो है वो इनका अब टूटना शुरू हो गया है। इनके अंदर से इनके मुखालफिन पैदा होना शुरू हो गए हैं। अमेरिका में भी एहतजाज हो रहे हैं, अब ताकत का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, एहतजाज बंद करें, लेकिन फिर ये चिंगारियाँ भड़केंगी, आर्जी तौर पर रुकेंगी भी तो फिर भड़क जाएंगी। अल्लाह ताला दुनिया की बड़ी ताकतों को अक्ल दे और इंसाफ से काम लें। अपने लिए और असूल हैं इनके और दूसरों के लिए, और यही चीज़ जो है फिर एक वक्त में आके UN के टूटने का बायस ही बन जाएगी।
We're living through very scary times, and it's important for us to keep praying for the situation of the world, as Beloved Huzoor reminds us constantly. Back to you, Nasir Bhai.
Jazakallah Ushman. Now let's head over to Canada to learn some more about the French language.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Aujourd'hui, je suis ici pour vous parler d'une chose vraiment spéciale, la journée internationale de la francophonie. Saviez-vous que l'ONU, l'Organisation des Nations Unies, reconnaît le français comme une de ses 6 langues officielles? Chaque année, le 20 mars, nous célébrons la richesse de la langue française et de la culture francophone dans 88 États membres de l'Organisation internationale de la francophonie. Ces États parlent principalement français, ce qui rend le terme francophone applicable à quiconque utilisant le français, que ce soit sa langue maternelle ou non. Devinez quoi? Il y a plus de 321 millions de francophones sur Terre. Mais savez-vous où la plupart d'entre eux vivent? Non, ce n'est pas en France, mais dans certaines régions d'Afrique subsaharienne et des pays autour de l'océan Indien. Ils représentent plus de 85% des francophones dans le monde entier. Les langues ont une capacité immense de se propager à travers le monde. Il existe même un drapeau spécial pour la francophonie. Regardons-le. C'est un symbole d'unité et de diversité avec ses 5 bandes colorées. Chaque bande représente un des 5 continents où la langue française est parlée. Bleu pour l'Europe, jaune pour l'Asie, vert pour l'Océanie, noir pour l'Afrique et rouge pour l'Amérique du Nord et Sud. Alors pourquoi est-il si important de promouvoir les langues? Ne sera-t-il pas plus simple que le monde entier parle la même langue? Pas vraiment. Allah le Tout-Puissant nous enseigne dans le Saint-Coran, Al-Hujurat verset 14, qu'il nous a créés en différentes tribus afin que nous puissions nous reconnaître et nous apprécier les uns les autres. En respectant les cultures et les langues de chacun, nous honorons les créateurs qui nous ont rendus uniques. Tout comme nous admirons les couleurs diverses d'un arc-en-ciel, nous chérissons la capacité de l'humanité à parler plusieurs langues. De plus, l'existence de plusieurs langues est un signe d'Allah, comme mentionné dans la sourate Al-Rum, chapitre 30, verset 23, indiquant la beauté de la diversité et la sagesse qui la sous-tend. Saviez-vous que parler plusieurs langues peut rendre notre esprit plus vif? Des études démontrent que les personnes bilingues ont plus de chances de réussir dans la vie parce qu'elles apprennent à jongler avec plusieurs langues, à résoudre des problèmes et à communiquer plus efficacement. Apprendre à parler la langue locale, qui pour nous est le français au Québec, est d'une importance primordiale, car cela nous permet de partager le vrai message de l'islam à travers le monde francophone. C'est pourquoi la communauté musulmane Ahmadiyya a traduit le Saint-Coran et de nombreux livres du Messie promis à l'islam en français. C'est incroyable! C'est vraiment bénéfique de pouvoir bien communiquer avec tout le monde et de partager notre belle religion. En reconnaissant l'importance de la langue, en mettant l'accent sur l'éducation et en donnant la priorité à la communication dans la langue locale, nous pouvons mieux servir l'islam et nous engager avec les communautés diverses dans tous les pays du monde. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih le 4e, Rahmallah ilayh, Hazrat Mirzatar Ahmed a déclaré: apprenez si bien la langue locale que vous puissiez enseigner cette langue aux personnes dont cette langue est la langue maternelle. Bonne journée internationale de la francophonie. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Que la paix et les bénédictions d'Allah soient sur vous tous.
That was fascinating. Now we'll be heading to Spain, which is full of amazing history and architecture. We made sure to capture all the amazing sights that we saw, and we're excited to share it with you now. Let's have a look.
There are many grand historical architectures that are hidden inside Spain, and most of them carry a lot of Islamic history too. Let's take a deeper look into the secret beauty of Spain. We begin our journey at the Grand Mosque of Cordoba, which is an architectural masterpiece that holds a significant place in Islamic art and Spanish history. When the Muslims landed in southern Spain in 711 CE and reached Cordoba, this site was divided and used by both Christians and Muslims at the same time. Only 20 minutes away, the Caliphate city of Medina al-Zahra is beautifully sat. Its name means the bright city and was built on the hillside of the mountain range of Cordoba in the northwest. Spain's medieval caliphate built the city in 3 tiers. Next, we head to Alhambra Palace, which is also known as the Red Fortress. This grand complex hidden behind the forest of trees was used as a military base for the guardians of the Sultan. The Islamic rulers of Spain built this ancient palace, and today it towers over the city of Granada. One of the oldest standing palaces in Europe is the Royal Alcazar of Seville. The Alcazar is the residence of Spanish royalty since the Middle Ages. This palace was originally constructed in the 10th century as a fortress for the city's Muslim rulers. It was also built with both Muslims and Christian architectural influences. Next, we travel through the dusty terrains and away from the city. The Baitur Rahman Mosque is situated on the outskirts of Valencia city. This mosque was inaugurated by Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmed, may Allah be his helper, on the 29th of March 2013. Lastly, only 4 hours away, we head to our final destination, the Basharat Mosque. The foundation stone was laid by Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmed, may Allah be pleased with him, on October 9th, 1980, making it the first Ahmadiyya mosque built in Spain. If you can, you should definitely include these historical buildings on your travel list. Not only do they all look incredibly beautiful, but they also carry the essence of Islamic history.
Jazakallah to our team in Canada for bringing us this report. Unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of today's episode, but not to worry, as we'll be back next week with another great lineup of reports from all around the world. In the meantime, be sure to follow us on our social media, where we provide you with exclusive content and some amazing behind the scenes. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call. Thy may seek to reach all the corners of the earth. Oh, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call. Thy may seek to reach all the corners of the earth. Oh, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call, oh, I shall call, I shall call. Thy may seek to reach all the corners of the earth.